You have asked this question in the silence of your own mind, perhaps while looking at the night sky, perhaps while standing at the grave of someone you loved. Does the universe need a creator? I have spent my life studying the laws that govern the stars, the motion of light, the fabric of time itself. And I will tell you something that may surprise you. The question you are asking is not wrong, but it is incomplete. You are asking whether someone made this vast machinery, but have you stopped to ask whether this machinery is the kind of thing that could ever be made at all? The answer I have found is simpler than theology and more mysterious than you have been led to believe. It changed not only my physics, but my understanding of what it means to be alive inside this incomprehensible whole. I want you to sit with me for a while, not as a student before a professor, not as a seeker before some supposed guru, but as one human being beside another, both of us looking up at the same sky, both of us carrying the same ancient questions in our hearts. Because what I am about to share with you is not a lecture, it is a confession. It is the honest account of what I have discovered and what I have not discovered after a lifetime of asking the very question you are asking now. You see, you have been given two stories about the universe, and I must tell you plainly, both of them are wrong. The first story says this: a personal God, a divine being much like a father, designed this cosmos, placed you inside it, watches your every deed, and will one day judge you. This story has been told in churches and temples for thousands of years. It offers comfort. I understand why people cling to it. When the night is dark and you are afraid, it is easier to believe that someone is watching, that someone cares, that your suffering is noticed and will be rewarded. But this comfort comes at a price. It comes at the price of honesty. Because this story asks you to imagine that the force behind billions of galaxies, behind the bending of space and the stretching of time, concerns itself with your private prayers, your Saturday rituals, your bedroom behavior. It reduces the infinite to the scale of human anxiety. It makes the cosmos into a courtroom and God into a judge keeping records. The second story says this: there is no meaning. The universe is an accident. You are a flicker of consciousness produced by chemistry signifying nothing. Your joys are illusions. Your sorrows are meaningless. When you die, you simply stop like a candle blown out, and that is all there is. This story is told in certain lecture halls and in certain books that pride themselves on their cold clarity. It offers a kind of freedom, the freedom of not caring, the freedom of not hoping, but it too is dishonest, because no one truly lives as though they believe it. You still weep at beauty. You still feel wonder at the night sky. You still ask why, even when you are told the question is forbidden. Something in you refuses to accept that existence is a meaningless accident, and that something is wiser than the story you have been told. What I offer you is neither of these prisons. I offer you what I call the cosmic religious sense. It is a third stage of religious experience, one that recognizes neither dogma nor God made in man's image. It does not ask you to believe in a watchful Father in the sky. It does not ask you to accept that your life is a pointless accident. It asks only this: that you feel the vanity of human desires and simultaneously feel the nobility and marvelous order revealed in nature and in the world of thought. This is not abstract philosophy meant for dusty books. This is practical relief. If you have felt crushed by a faith that demands blind obedience, you will find freedom here. If you have felt hollow inside a worldview that strips existence of all meaning, you will find depth here. I do not ask you to abandon your heart. I ask you to enlarge it. I ask you to stop shrinking the infinite down to the size of your fears, and instead to let yourself be expanded by the incomprehensible magnificence of what actually is. The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion which stands at the cradle of true art and true science. Whoever does not know it and can no longer wonder, no longer marvel, is as good as dead, and his eyes are dimmed. You are not here to choose between cold atheism and childlike faith. You are here to discover that the universe is more magnificent and more strange than either camp has dared to admit. And in that discovery, something in you will change forever. Let me begin by telling you how human beings came to religious thought in the first place. Because if you understand the origins of the question, you will understand why your question, does the universe need a creator, is shaped the way it is, and why it may need to be reshaped before it can be answered. Everything that men do or think concerns the satisfaction of needs they feel, or the escape from pain. This must be kept in mind when we seek to understand spiritual movements and the way in which they develop. Feeling and longing are the motive forces of all human striving and productivity, however gnarly these may display themselves to us. What then are the feelings and the needs which have brought mankind to religious thought and to faith in the widest sense? In primitive peoples, it is first of all fear that awakens religious ideas. Fear of hunger, fear of wild animals, fear of illness, fear of death, since the understanding of causal connections is usually limited at this level of existence. The human soul forges a being more or less like itself on whose will and activities these fearful experiences depend. One hopes to win the favor of this being by deeds and sacrifices, which according to the tradition of the race are supposed to appease the being or to make it well disposed toward man. I call this the religion of fear. Think about this for a moment. The earliest humans looked out at a world they could not understand. Thunder crashed without warning. Disease struck without explanation. Death came for the young and the old alike, with no apparent pattern or justice. And so they imagined beings behind these events. Gods of the storm, spirits of sickness, ancestors who needed to be appeased. They created rituals to calm these beings down, to buy their favor, to avoid their wrath. This religion of fear is considerably stabilized, though not caused by the formation of a priestly caste, which claims to mediate between the people and the beings they fear. The priests say, "We know the rituals, we know the sacrifices, we know what the gods demand. Trust us, follow us, pay us, and we will intercede on your behalf." Often a leader or despot or a privileged class whose power is maintained in other ways will combine the function of the priesthood with temporal rule for the sake of greater security, or an alliance forms between the interests of political power and the priestly caste. Fear plus authority equals obedience. This has been the formula for millennia. But then something remarkable happens in human history. A second source of religious development emerges, the social feeling. Fathers and mothers, as well as leaders of great human communities, are fallible and mortal. The longing for guidance, for love, for succor, provides the stimulus for the growth of a new conception. This is the God of providence, the God who protects, who decides, who rewards and punishes. This is the God who, according to man's widening horizon, loves and provides for the life of the race, or of mankind, or who even loves life itself. This God becomes the comforter in unhappiness and in unsatisfied longing, the protector of the souls of the dead. This is what I call the moral religion, and it is a great step forward in the life of a people, the transformation from fear into ethics. You can trace this development in the sacred writings of the Jewish people, where the religion of fear gradually evolves into the moral religion. You can see it carried further in the New Testament. The religions of all civilized peoples, especially those of the Orient, are principally moral religions. But here is what I must tell you now, and I ask you to listen carefully. Both of these stages, the religion of fear and the moral religion, share a common limitation. They both imagine God in man's image. They project human psychology onto the infinite. The God of fear is like a tyrant who must be appeased. The God of morality is like a father who watches over his children. Both are anthropomorphic. Both reduce the incomprehensible to something the human mind can grasp. And this is where most people stop. Most people never move beyond these two stages. They swing back and forth between fearing God and loving God, between appeasing the divine and bargaining with it, never realizing that both approaches assume something that may not be true, that God is like us. But there is a third stage. It is seldom found in a pure form, but it exists, and it is the highest form of religious experience available to a human being. I call it the cosmic religious sense. This is hard to make clear to those who do not experience it, since it does not involve an anthropomorphic idea of God. The individual who experiences it feels the vanity of human desires and aims, and simultaneously feels the nobility and marvelous order which are revealed in nature. And in the world of thought, such a person feels individual destiny as a kind of imprisonment and seeks to experience the totality of existence as a unity full of significance. The religious geniuses of all times have been distinguished by this cosmic religious sense, which recognizes neither dogmas nor God made in man's image. Consequently, there cannot be a church whose chief doctrines are based on the cosmic religious experience. It comes about, therefore, that precisely among the heretics of all ages, we find men who were inspired by this highest religious experience. Often they appeared to their contemporaries as atheists, but sometimes also as saints. Viewed from this angle, men like Democritus, Francis of Assisi, and Spinoza are near to one another. Think about that. the ancient Greek philosopher who first proposed that the world was made of atoms, the medieval saint who spoke to birds and embraced poverty, the Dutch lens grinder who was excommunicated for believing that God and nature were one. These men, separated by centuries and cultures, are kindred spirits. They all touched the same truth. They all experienced the cosmic religious sense. And this brings me to a question that you must have been asking in your own mind. How can this cosmic religious experience be communicated from one person to another, if it cannot lead to a definite conception of God or to a theology? It seems to me that the most important function of art and of science is to arouse and keep alive this feeling in those who are receptive to it. This is why I devoted my life to physics, not because I wanted to build better machines or predict the motions of planets. Though these things are useful, I devoted my life to physics because the pursuit of understanding is itself a form of worship. Every equation that reveals a hidden harmony, every experiment that confirms a predicted truth, every moment when the mind suddenly grasps a connection it had never seen before. These are religious experiences. They awaken the cosmic sense. They remind us that we are not alone in a meaningless void, but are participants in an order so vast and so beautiful that it takes our breath away. Let me tell you about two men who understood what I mean. Men whose lives can teach you more than any sermon. Johannes Kepler lived in an age when the reign of law in nature was by no means certain. The world seemed chaotic, governed by the whims of spirits and the unpredictable interventions of God. But Kepler believed otherwise. How great must his faith have been? His faith in the existence of natural law to give him the strength to devote decades of hard and patient work to the empirical investigation of planetary motion. He worked entirely on his own, supported by no one, understood by very few. Year after year, he pored over the astronomical observations of Tycho Brahe, searching for the pattern, the regularity, the law that he was convinced must be there, and he found it. He discovered that the planets move in ellipses, not circles. He discovered the precise mathematical relationships governing their speeds and distances. He did not find these things because he was the cleverest man alive. He found them because he refused to stop looking, because something in him, call it faith, call it intuition, call it the cosmic religious sense, told him that the universe was rational, that it could be understood, that its order was worthy of a lifetime's devotion. And then there was Isaac Newton, who came after Kepler and built upon his work. Newton combined the light of an extraordinary mind with a deep conviction about the nature of reality. He knew that the heavenly bodies moved, and he knew the one thing you cannot make anything do: move in a straight line forever without cause. Things fall, things curve, things are pulled. And Newton wanted to know why. For years he worked in solitary labor, unraveling the mechanism of the heavens. He was surrounded by skeptical contemporaries who did not understand what he was doing or why he cared. But he persisted, and in the end he gave us a picture of the universe that lasted for 300 years, until my own work showed that it was not the final word, but only a magnificent approximation. What drove these men? Not the religion of fear. They were not trying to appease an angry God. Not the moral religion. They were not bargaining for rewards in the afterlife. Something deeper drove them. The cosmic religious feeling. What a deep conviction of the rationality of the universe they must have had. What a yearning to understand, were it but a feeble reflection of the mind revealed in this world. Anyone who only knows scientific research in its practical applications may easily come to a wrong interpretation of the state of mind of men like Kepler and Newton. Such people see technology, they see utility, they see the practical benefits of science, but they do not see the fire that burns in a person who asks why, who cannot rest until they comprehend, who gives their life to the pursuit of a truth they know they will never fully possess. The cosmic religious experience is the strongest and noblest driving force behind scientific research. No one who does not appreciate the terrific exertions, and above all the devotion without which pioneer work cannot come into being, can judge the strength of the feeling from which alone such work can grow. Only those who have dedicated their lives to similar ends can have a living conception of the inspiration which gave these men the power to remain loyal to their purpose in spite of countless failures. It is the cosmic religious sense which grants this power. Now I must address directly the question you came here asking. Does the universe need a creator? Before we can answer this question, we must understand something about the nature of the questioner. We must understand the limits of the human mind. I see a pattern, but my imagination cannot picture the maker of that pattern. I see the clock, but I cannot envision is the clockmaker. The human mind is unable to conceive of 4 dimensions. How can it conceive of a God before whom 1,000 years and 1,000 dimensions are as one? Think about this carefully. You ask, who made the universe? But the question assumes that making is the right category. It assumes that causality, the way things work in your daily experience, applies at the level of existence itself. A carpenter makes a chair. A parent makes a child. Therefore, you assume someone must have made the cosmos. But I have seen in my study of physics that causality itself behaves strangely at certain scales and speeds. I have seen that time is not a river flowing forward, but a dimension as flexible as space. I have seen that the very concepts we use to describe reality are symbols, and most mistakes in philosophy and logic occur because the human mind is apt to take the symbol for the reality. Let me give you an image that may help. Imagine a bedbug completely flattened, living on the surface of a globe. This bedbug may be gifted with analysis. He may study physics. He may even write a book. His universe will be he can move forward and backward, left and right, but he has no concept of up and down. He may even intellectually or mathematically conceive of a 3rd dimension, but he cannot visualize it. He cannot see it. He cannot represent it physically. It exists only mathematically for him. The mind cannot grasp what the senses cannot touch. Now, look at yourself. You are that bedbug only. You are 3-dimensional instead of 2. You can imagine a 4th dimension mathematically, but you cannot see it. You cannot visualize it. You cannot represent it physically. And yet, you ask, who made this? As if you could comprehend the answer. This is not an insult. It is a liberation. Because once you understand what you cannot know, you begin finally to feel what you can know. And that feeling has a name. It is wonder, it is awe. It is the cosmic religious sense. There is no universe beyond the universe for us. It is not part of our concept. Of course, you must not take comparisons like the globe to literally. I am speaking in symbols. But the point remains, the question, does the universe need a creator, assumes that we stand outside the universe looking and able to judge whether it was made or not made. But we do not stand outside. We are inside. We are part of the pattern. The eye cannot see itself. This does not mean the question is meaningless. It means the question must be transformed. Instead of asking who made this, we can ask what is revealed here. Instead of looking for a craftsman, we can feel the craft. Instead of demanding an explanation that fits our limited categories, we can open ourselves to an experience that transcends those categories. Now, let me be very clear about what I reject and why. For anyone who is pervaded with the sense of causal law in all that happens, who accepts in real earnest the assumption of causality, the idea of a being who interferes with a sequence of events in the world is absolutely impossible. Neither the religion of fear nor the moral religion can have any hold on such a person. A God who rewards and punishes is inconceivable to me. Let me say that again because you have been taught to flinch at such words. A God who rewards and punishes, who watches your deeds and tallies your sins, is inconceivable. Not because I am arrogant, but because I have stared too long into the order of this universe to believe that the force behind it resembles a school principal keeping records. Here is why a man acts in accordance with inner and outer necessity. Your choices feel free to you, but they arise from causes. Your genes, your upbringing, your experiences, your brain chemistry, the entire chain of events stretching back to the beginning of time. In the eyes of such a God as the moral religion imagines, you would be as little responsible for your actions as an inanimate object is responsible for the movements it makes. A stone rolls downhill, not because it chooses to, but because gravity pulls it. Your thoughts and actions, examined closely, are no different. They arise from causes you did not choose. This is not a depressing idea, it is a liberating one. Schopenhauer's saying has been a real inspiration to me since my youth. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. This realization mercifully mitigates the icily paralyzing sense of responsibility. It prevents us from taking ourselves and other people too seriously. It is conducive to a view of life which gives humor its due. And most importantly, it frees us from the terrible burden of imagining that we are being watched and judged by a God who expects us to do what we cannot do. Science has therefore been accused of undermining morals, but the charge is unjust. The ethical behavior of man is better based on sympathy, education, and social relationships, and requires no support from religion. Man's plight would indeed be sad if he had to be kept in order through fear of punishment and hope of rewards after death. The best in us does not come from fear of hell. It comes from love of each other, from education that opens our minds, from social bonds that make cruelty unthinkable. We do not need a cosmic policeman. We need wisdom and compassion. The churches have always fought against science, and this is why, because science honestly pursued dissolves the god of fear and the god of bargains. It shows that the universe operates according to law, not whim. It reveals that we are not special creatures placed at the center of creation, but evolved beings on a small planet orbiting an ordinary star in one of billions of galaxies. This is humbling, and some people cannot bear to be humbled. But here is what they miss. Science does not replace God with emptiness. It replaces a small God with a large one. It replaces the God of human anxieties with the God of cosmic order. To be sure, the doctrine of a personal God interfering with natural events can never be truly refuted by science, for this doctrine can always retreat to domains where scientific knowledge has not yet set foot. Whenever science explains something, the believer can say, yes, but what about this other thing that science has not yet explained? And so the personal God retreats, step by step, into the shrinking gaps of our ignorance. But such a retreat is unworthy. A doctrine which can only maintain itself in the dark will lose its effect on mankind, with incalculable harm to human progress in their struggle for the ethical good. Teachers of religion must have the stature to give up the doctrine of a personal God. That is, give up that source of fear and hope, which in the past placed such vast power in the hands of priests. They must avail themselves of those forces which are capable of cultivating the good, the true, and the beautiful in humanity itself. This is a more difficult task, but it is an incomparably more worthy one. And now I must tell you what I do believe. I believe in intuition and inspiration. At times, I feel certain I am right, while not knowing the reason. When the eclipse of 1919 confirmed my theory, I was not in the least surprised. In fact, I would have been astonished had it turned out otherwise. Something in me knew before the evidence was in that the universe was shaped in the way I had imagined. This is not arrogance. This is trust. Trust in the rationality of nature. Trust that the patterns I see in my mind correspond to patterns that exist in reality. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. It is strictly speaking a real factor in scientific research. The great discoveries were not made by people who merely collected facts. They were made by people who imagined connections that no one had seen before, and then tested those imaginings against reality. The basis of all scientific work is the conviction that the world is an ordered and comprehensible entity, and this conviction is itself a religious sentiment. My religious feeling is a humble amazement at the order revealed in the small patch of reality to which my feeble intelligence is equal. There is no doubt that all but the crudest scientific work is based on a firm belief, akin to religious feeling in the rationality and comprehensibility of the world. This firm belief, a belief bound up with deep feeling in a superior mind that reveals itself in the world of experience, represents my conception of God. In common parliament, this may be described as pantheistic in the sense of the philosopher Spinoza. You ask, does the universe need a creator? I answer, the universe reveals a mind. Not a mind like yours, a mind that worries, that plans, that judges, but an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. My religious feeling takes the form of rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, a harmony that reveals this intelligence. And this feeling is the guiding principle of my life and work, insofar as I succeed in keeping myself from the shackles of selfish desire. You see, when you ask, does the universe need a creator, you're asking whether someone made this thing we call the cosmos. But what I have found is different. I have found that the universe itself displays a rationality so profound, a harmony so beautiful, that the question of making becomes almost irrelevant. Whether or not someone made it, the universe is in its very structure a revelation of mind. Consider this. Why should the universe be comprehensible at all? Why should mathematical equations dreamed up in the minds of human beings correspond to the actual behavior of stars and atoms? Why should there be laws at all rather than chaos? These questions have no easy answers, but they point to something remarkable. The universe is not a random jumble. It is an ordered whole. And that order, that rationality, that harmony, this is what I call God. not a God who interferes, not a God who listens to prayers, not a God who punishes sinners and rewards saints, but a God who is revealed in the structure of existence itself. A God you can touch every time you understand something true. A God you can feel every time beauty stops you in your tracks. Here is the paradox you must learn to hold. The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion which stands at the cradle of true art and true science. Whoever does not know it and can no longer wonder, no longer marvel, is as good as dead, and his eyes are dimmed. It was the experience of mystery, even if mixed with fear, that engendered religion in the first place, a knowledge of the existence of something we cannot penetrate. Our perceptions of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which only in their most primitive forms are accessible to our minds. This knowledge and this emotion constitute true religiosity. In this sense, and in this alone, I am a deeply religious man. I cannot conceive of a God who rewards and punishes his creatures, or has a will of the kind that we experience in ourselves. Neither can I, nor would I want to conceive of an individual that survives physical death. Let feeble souls from fear or absurd egoism cherish such thoughts. I am satisfied with the mystery of the eternity of life. I am satisfied with the awareness and a glimpse of the marvelous structure of the existing world. I am satisfied with the devoted striving to comprehend a portion, be it ever so tiny, of the reason that manifests itself in nature. This is not a resignation. This is fulfillment. You have been told that science and religion are irreconcilable antagonists. From the study of history, one is inclined to see it this way. The churches have persecuted scientists. Scientists have mocked believers. The Inquisition burned Giordano Bruno. Galileo was forced to recant. Darwin was vilified from pulpits. The war seems eternal. But this conflict arises from a misunderstanding. Science can only ascertain what is. It cannot tell us what should be outside its domain. Value judgments of all kinds remain necessary. Religion, properly understood, deals with evaluations of human thought and action. It speaks to our hearts, to our sense of meaning, to our longing for the good and the beautiful. It cannot justifiably speak of facts in the way science does, and science cannot justifiably speak of values in the way religion does. When a religious community insists on the absolute truthfulness of all statements in ancient scriptures, that is an intervention into the sphere of science. That is where the struggle against Galileo and Darwin belongs. The churches were wrong to fight these battles because they were fighting on territory that did not belong to them. When scientists attempt to derive moral judgments from empirical method alone, when they claim that because the universe is meaningless, human life is meaningless, that is an intervention into the sphere of religion. That is also a mistake, because they are claiming more than their methods can support. Both are errors and both cause unnecessary suffering. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. The genuine scientist possesses a religious feeling of his own. It is different from the religiosity of the naive man, the man who imagines God as a father figure watching from the clouds. But it is no less profound. The scientist is possessed by the sense of universal causation, by rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law. This feeling is closely akin to that which has possessed the religious geniuses of all ages. In this materialistic age of ours, I sometimes think that the serious scientific workers are the only profoundly religious people. So where does this leave you? What are you to do with what I have told you? I want to offer you not just ideas but practices, not just thoughts but ways of living. Because the cosmic religious sense is not something you simply understand with your mind. It is something you cultivate with your whole being. The first practice is this: recover your capacity to wonder. You have been trained to ask questions only so you can receive answers. You have been taught that not knowing is failure. That mystery is a problem to be solved and then filed away. But I tell you, the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious look at the night sky, not to name the constellations, not to calculate distances, but simply to feel the incomprehensible scale of what you are seeing. Those points of light are suns, many of them larger than our own. The light reaching your eyes has traveled for years, sometimes for centuries. You are looking into the past. You are seeing light that left its source before you were born, before your parents were born, before your nation existed. Let this sink in. Do not rush past it to the next thought. Stay with the wonder. Hold a leaf in your hand, not to identify the species, but to notice the staggering complexity of what you are holding. Inside that leaf are millions of cells, each one containing machinery more intricate than any factory humans have ever built. Chemical reactions are taking place right now, transforming sunlight into sugar, releasing oxygen into the air you breathe. This is happening in every green thing around you, every moment of every day. It is ordinary and it is miraculous. Listen to music not to analyze the harmony, but to let yourself be swept into something you cannot fully articulate. Why does a certain sequence of sounds move you to tears? Why does a melody feel like coming home? These questions have no final answers. And that is precisely why music matters. It connects you to the mysterious. It awakens the cosmic sense. This is not sentimentality. This is the foundation of true science and true art. The feeling of mystery is not the enemy of understanding. It is the motivation for understanding. The people who have understood the most, Kepler, Newton, and those who came after, were not people who had lost their sense of wonder. They were people whose wonder drove them to dig deeper. Anyone who has lost this feeling is as good as dead. Revive it. The second practice is this. Release the God you have been praying to out of fear. You do not need to stop believing. You need to stop believing small. Ask yourself honestly, have I been worshipping a God who resembles a landlord tallying debts, demanding rent, threatening eviction? Have I been praying to a God I can flatter, trick, or negotiate with? Have I been trying to appease a being who will hurt me if I fail to perform the right rituals? If so, let that God go, not because the universe is empty, but because the universe is fuller than any such image can contain. The God of fear is too small. The God of bargains is too petty. The God who monitors your thoughts and punishes your doubts is not worthy of the cosmos that actually exists. When you release the God of fear, you do not fall into a void. You fall into wonder. You fall into the cosmic religious sense which asks nothing of you except that you pay attention, that you feel the order, that you allow yourself to be astonished by what is. This is not loss. This is liberation. I know this is difficult. The God of fear has been with you since childhood. You were taught to be afraid before you could reason. The fear lives in your body, not just your mind. Releasing it takes time. Be patient with yourself, but begin to notice when you are motivated by fear of divine punishment, and gently ask yourself, is this the highest form of religion? Is this worthy of the universe I actually live in? The third practice is this. Treat your curiosity as a form of worship. The source of all scientific advancement is what I have called the God-given curiosity of the toiling experimenter and the constructive fantasy of the technical inventor. Every honest act of attention is an act of reverence. Wherever you apply your mind to mathematics, to music, to the behavior of markets, or the migration of birds, to the growth of a garden, or the structure of a sentence, you are participating in the revelation of order. You are uncovering the rationality that pervades existence. You are touching the mind that manifests in nature. You do not need to be a physicist to practice this. You do not need a laboratory or a university degree. You need only to care about the structure of the world, to ask why, to follow the thread wherever it leads. When you cook a meal, you are participating in chemistry. When you watch a child learn to walk, you are witnessing the miracle of neurology and mechanics and will. When you plant a seed and watch it grow, you are observing processes that scientists have studied for centuries and still do not fully understand. Everything is interesting if you look closely enough. Everything is mysterious if you look honestly enough. The world is not divided into sacred and profane. Everything is sacred because everything reveals the order, the rationality, the mind that I call God. Kepler and Newton did not pursue knowledge for fame or money. They pursued it because they were possessed by a longing to understand even a feeble reflection of the mind revealed in nature. Join them not in the specific content of their research, but in the spirit that drove them. The fourth and final practice is this. Learn to live with the question itself. You asked, does the universe need a creator? And I have not given you a simple yes or no. I have given you something more difficult, a transformation of the question itself. The question is not whether someone made the universe as a carpenter makes a chair. The question is whether the order you see reveals an intelligence, and whether that revelation can become the foundation of your inner life. My answer is yes. The universe reveals a superior mind, not a mind that watches your deeds and calculates your sins, but an intelligence so vast that all human thought is an insignificant reflection of it. I see the pattern. I cannot picture the maker of the pattern, but the pattern itself is enough. It is more than enough. It fills me with awe for the rest of my life. You do not need certainty. You need wonder. You do not need all the answers. You need the courage to keep asking and to be satisfied with the mystery of what you cannot penetrate. This is the cosmic religious sense, and it is available to you right now in this moment. If you will only stop grasping and start receiving. You came here asking a question as old as human consciousness. Does the universe need a creator? And I have not given you the answer your Sunday school teacher would give, nor the answer your atheist professor would give. I have given you a third answer. The universe reveals an order so marvelous, so mathematically harmonious, so far beyond what any human mind could have invented that it deserves the name sacred. I see the clock. I cannot picture the clockmaker, but the clock is enough. The order is enough. The beauty is enough. The anthropomorphic God, the God who tallies sins, who rewards obedience, who punishes heresy. That God I do not believe in, not because I have grown cold, but because I have grown too full of wonder to imagine the infinite behaving like a bureaucrat. What I believe in is this: the cosmic religious sense, the humble amazement at the order revealed in nature, the rapturous recognition that there is intelligence in the structure of existence, an intelligence so superior that all human thinking is an utterly insignificant reflection of it. This is not cold. This is not hollow. This is the warmest, deepest, most sustaining faith I know. You are not choosing between faith and reason. You are not choosing between God and emptiness. You are standing at the threshold of the highest religious experience, the cosmic sense of wonder at what is. You have permission to let go of the small gods. You have permission to stop bargaining with the infinite. You have permission to fall into mystery and to find there not despair but reverence. Before God, we are all equally wise, equally foolish, and that is not a tragedy. That is a liberation. If something in these words has resonated with you, if you felt even for a moment the opening of a door you did not know was there, I invite you to stay. There is more to say, more questions to ask, more mystery to enter. If you found value here, leave a note below. Tell me what you were wondering. Tell me what troubled you or what freed you. And if you wish to walk further on this path, you may return. I will be here speaking to you as I have always spoken, as one curious mind to another inside this incomprehensible hole. The universe does not need a creator the way a chair needs a carpenter, but the universe reveals a mind, and that mind glimpsed in every law of nature, in every harmony of mathematics, in every moment of understanding, is more than enough to fill a human life with meaning. Go now, look up at the sky, look down at your hands, look around at the world you have been given, and let yourself feel what you have always known but have been afraid to admit, that you are part of something vast, something beautiful, something mysterious beyond all telling. That is enough. That is more than enough. And remember this, my friend, you did not come to this question by accident. Something brought you here. Something in you is searching, reaching, longing for a truth larger than the stories you were told as a child. Honor that longing. It is the most sacred thing about you. It is the cosmic religious sense, already alive in your heart, already pulling you toward the infinite. Do not be afraid of what you cannot understand. Be grateful for it. The mystery is not your enemy. The mystery is your home. That is everything.